Hey everyone, I'm Jason and welcome back to Winkler Knives HQ. I'm sitting here with Daniel Winkler and we are going to go into a deep dive with the belt knife, one of the iconic knives of the Winkler Knives designs and lineage here. So we're going to talk about where it came from and how it got to where it's at. So Daniel, when we're talking about the belt knife, how did it evolve?
Well, the belt knife was actually the first product offered through Winkler Knives 2, which is when we first got into the manufacturing. We had developed a knife for naval special warfare called the NSW field knife. And once we started into making that, we did realize that it was a restricted model. So we wanted to do something with the same performance and same capabilities that wasn't restricted. So we could sell it to other military and law enforcement units, and then also translate it very well to outdoorsmen and hunters.
Like we've talked about in our last video, our origins video, we talked about the whole evolution of how naval special warfare got involved with Winkler knives and how we built up to where we are. But so, yeah, the field knife, it met a special criteria, right? They were looking for specific things.
Yeah, they needed a very design-specific knife for the new type of warfare they were getting into. A lot of close quarter operations, and so the old folding knives that were so common at the time were not really adequate for what they might run into. And so we worked with them extensively in developing a full tapered tang knife that could be easily carried on the kit, that was accessible and highly functional. And it just really translated well to expanding into a very similar model that was available to the public and also other units.
When you say restricted by these guys, this special teams, they wanted this knife just for their criteria.
Exactly. They wanted a knife that was exclusive to their command.
Sure.
And so we did that without any problems, and so, but it's also such a well-researched and developed design. It has appealed to a lot of other folks. And so that's really, and also we wanted to get into it to where when we first started into manufacturing, we realized if we could make more, then we could keep the costs low for the military and professionals. And by amortizing our expenses on equipment and training and personnel, we could have more going on, which are keep the costs low, and it also gives us the opportunity to make more. And as we made more, we got better at making them and made them better. So they've improved over the years.
Absolutely. So I actually have a list here of all the stuff they were looking for. And going right from the beginning, they wanted a full tapered tang for strength and weight reduction. They wanted a recycled rubber grips, correct?
Yeah, well, it stays real grippy, wet or dry. We've done a lot of rubber handles over the years. Still will do some in the future, but their standard knife all had this same researched recycled tire rubber.
Okay, and they wanted a thumb ramp, right? And then they wanted a certain amount of jimping and file work there.
Right, for thumb grip and secure and control.
The funny thing is I'm looking at this knife, but I see the same features in the belt knife.
Yeah.
It's almost the exact same knife.
Well, yeah, they have a very similar makeup and design and functionality. You can do pretty much anything with our belt knife as you could with the NSW knife.
They wanted a black oxide finish. They wanted a blade that was at least 4.5 inches long, correct? Overall length of 8 3/4. The weight was a big deal. They wanted 6.5 ounces. They wanted serrations. Now, we don't do serrations anymore, but they wanted serrations.
Well, the knives that they had been used to using were pretty nice knives, and I saw some of them, and they all had some serrations. And so the guys that did the testing on the knives to make the selection on what they would order for their units were so used to the serrations, they requested them. So we've found since then, very few times they're necessary, and it does take up about an inch of your cutting edge that might be better put to use without them. And so, on their knife, we still do their serrations because it was how it was described and how it's ordered.
Sure.
But as far as we're not really into serrations for the most part on our current models because it's basically unnecessary.
Just because of our blade geometry and the way we...
Well, it's very rare that you would need to cut something that serrations would be that much of a benefit. And So we kind of dropped it. Our serrations are also very costly because every single cove is cut one at a time. We made serrations to actually work, and they do, but it's an unnecessary additional cost for the most part. So we pretty much stay away from them now.
Well, as an end user, I appreciate it because I can't sharpen serrations. I didn't, might as well forget about it.
Yeah.
So we got the field knife here from Naval Special Warfare. So what did it evolve into? I guess the first belt knife, the Winkler 2 belt knife.
The first belt knife model also had serrations because we were emulating what we did for NSW, and we didn't have the experience yet on that. Very similar in size and shape, different handle shape, different blade shape. We even put a little texture on the flats of the blade because that's pretty much what I was doing at the time with the hand forged pieces. So we did a few in this early Gen 1, and then we moved just a little bit different and cleaned up the features, went back to the cove and line file work for the thumb grip, finger drop, produced this basic model of the belt knife for several years. And as we learned what worked better and what didn't, we made a more drastic design change. Beefed up the blade just a little bit, used a radius finger drop instead of the 90-degree finger drop, which is more comfortable, a little more control, and then cleaned up the handle shape and the balance, improved the balance. So it's evolved now to the belt knife that we've currently been producing, since, I don't know, years ago. It was prior to probably 2009 or 10 maybe. It's when we made our last changes to it.
So when Naval Special Warfare came to you and you started this project, you had been doing hand forged pieces for years and years, and so production wasn't really your thing at the time, but you become involved in cutting competitions, right? So you was learning a lot of stuff, right?
Well, yeah, it became very important, and this was prior to doing the first NSW knife. I learned a tremendous amount about blade performance, and that was a lot of factors. In order to be successful in cutting competitions, your knife has to be exactly right. You're competing with some guys that have really high skill levels in both their athletic abilities and their ability in design and manufacturing a knife. So, I learned a lot about blade balance and geometry, bevel geometry, edge geometry, weight distribution, and heat treating was an extremely important factor because you had to get the absolute best out of the steels that you were working with. And so the model, NSW model that we did, even though like so many of our other products have been historically influenced in the design based on earlier models that Karen and I did from our hand forged days, the NSW model and the belt knife didn't have that historic influence in design, but what it did have was influence in a knife that would work for you in the field. So there was nothing on it that didn't need to be there. There were not embellishments and flares about it that were unnecessary. So it had the same history, just not necessarily historic design to come up with this model that worked well. And the people that were carrying them, the worst knife that you have is the one that stays on the shelf when you go out in the field.
Oh, yeah.
And so by developing a knife that could be easily worn in a sheath system, which was very important, so it could be worn in a variety of different ways, vertically, horizontally, left-handed, right-handed. By doing that, it was a knife that was actually carried in the field on missions, which set it apart from a lot of other knives that they had been issued before that perhaps didn't have the functionality that warranted the space on their kit.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, and there was some more things they were looking for too, right? They were wanting a specific handle design configuration as far as it's secure, it auto indexes when you grab it, you can pull it with ambidextrous, right or left-handed.
Exactly, and point location centrally located, so if they had to use it as stabbing motion, it had good power behind it. Flare in the back of the handle so you don't lose your knife, finger drop in the front so you don't overextend when you're using the heavy situation. So a lot of cutting edge with the upsweep, the slight trailing point in the blade. It's got a lot more cutting edge. You've got more cutting ability. So a lot of fine details went into the development, and I worked with actual team members, operators in the development to be sure we had exactly what they needed and could carry it on their kit, and it warranted the space.
That makes complete sense. So basically, we're still talking about the Naval Special Warfare field knife, but everything we're talking about transitions to the current belt knife. I mean, it's one you can buy today.
It is, and the belt knife has been historically our #1 seller from the years when we first started manufacturing under the name Winkler Knives too, which I think we covered that in our previous video.
In our origin video, yeah. You were telling me that these warriors, these tier 1 guys, these excellent fighters, they're also hunters. And so, this combative knife also transitions to the field. When they come home, they come on leave, they take it with them, right?
Well, it does. And just as an everyday functional knife out in the field, I can't tell you how many dozens and dozens, maybe even hundreds of emails and pictures and stories I've heard where they come home and they take it on a deer hunt or elk hunt or bear hunt, and it functions very well for them as an all-purpose outdoor blade, whether it be in the field of battle or in the field of pleasure. So it's done very well as far as a highly functioning, balanced knife.
I talk to a lot of Winkler fans, because I'm handling a lot of the social media, and it's just amazing to me. Everyone seems to have a belt knife. It is the standard. Whenever you get into Winkler knives, you got to have the belt knife, and then you start moving out, and you see how great the belt knife is, and you think, well, it's great, but I got a specific reason I want something else, and here we go with it, and it also works great.
Yeah.
The sheath system, that was a whole system, too, that you had to go into detail with. I mean, there was specific criteria they wanted.
Well, early on when I was working with the operators in the development, I developed a sheath for the knife, that basic standard knife sheath. And then as I talked with them and realized that different guys carried it in a different way. They may have other gear on their kit that has to have the space for their jobs. So some would carry it vertically, some would carry it behind the back for a scout carry, others a cross straw. So we developed a sheath system that could be worn on a belt, in a waistband, on molly loops, so they could mount it on their kit, their tack vest, or their belt, or however they wanted to, and it still be accessible and secure. Every sheath also is a leather cover with a liner, because they were very specific. They wanted it to be quiet, but they wanted the security of a thermoforming plastic like Kydex or Bolteron. So each knife is formed inside its sheath. So they all have a very tight, very secure fit. And then you can move the loop system or the carry system around from there.
Yeah, we did a whole video on that on YouTube. You can check it out on Winkler Knives headquarters YouTube channel. You can see how you can configure this sheath and how you can actually get the enhancement kit from us, and you can wear a whole bunch of different ways.
Yeah, you can, and it's been a good standard, and we've developed other sheaths for other models using this same design features, so they have the same capabilities of wearing multiple carry systems on many cases, not everything, but a lot.
And you chose Bolteron because it performs really well in temperature variations, right? I mean,
Bolteron and Kydex, I can't say I've noticed any real functionality variations. Our Bolteron supplier just happened to have more of the thicknesses and of what we needed, and so we get really good we get really good service. And so we actually use Bolteron. Now, we started with Kydex. We switched to Bolteron just because we've had really good success with that. But same basic thing.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. So if you look here, you can see the original field knife. Then we move over to the first belt knife, one of the very first hand-forged belt knives that came through.
Yeah, actually, these two pieces came out of our museum in our store.
Oh, did they?
So I took them off a display board because we saved them and still had them. So that's why I even have those. They're the only two I know of in existence. I'm sure there's more because we did several of each model, I imagine, but they sold out. They were gone a long time ago, and there's a lot still in the field. So there's a few of those out there, I imagine.
So before we transition out of this altogether, the field knife, the Naval Special Warfare field knife, it doesn't quite look exactly like this anymore, does it? It's transitional.
It's transitioned a little, not much. We put a little bit more width in the blade to give a little more cutting edge, but it's been the model that has changed the least of anything since we started, because they were very happy with it, and the men I worked with on the development, some are still with us and some are not, so they're hesitant to make much change because something that was so well researched and developed and then used by so many operators around the world for a long time now.
Well, you said that you get a lot of emails, a lot of testimonials, a lot of people telling you what they've done and how Winkler Knives has helped them out. I've actually got a couple right here that I'm going to read real quick. One gentleman was traveling south on 85. Yesterday is what it says. So I'm not sure when this came to us. But he happened to be the first on the scene for a horrific rollover accident. He had a belt knife with him. He can't tell us how much he appreciated having it, but he jumped out. He used it to punch out the passenger side window and cut the female out of the vehicle. She unfortunately didn't make it, but he was also able to get the driver out, able to cut him out and save his life.
Absolutely.
Another one here is he actually had a Blue Ridge Hunter. The knife had gone with him on numerous hunting trips, cut hundreds of yards of cordage, helped him prepare several meals and campsites and all this good stuff. And he happened to run up on another accident himself. But he was in the accident. So all he had with him was his medical bag, and he had his Winkler Blue Ridge Hunter. And he used it to cut himself out and then drag himself out of the vehicle and thus maybe save his life.
It did. I remember another one that's not on here, and I couldn't find it to print. We had a gentleman that had been in the military, and he was out hiking, I think maybe along the Appalachian Trail. It was the East Coast, I believe, and he had gotten to a situation where his dog was in danger due to a rock slide. And so the dog was wedged, and so he used his knife, and it was a belt knife, to pry the boulder off. The dog, saved the dog, lost his knife. It went to the bottom of the gorge, but he was able to save his dog. And so, of course, we replaced his knife for him.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. One more final one here. It was a gentleman who is currently in active duty, and he was over in a Serbian theater. He was a EOD technician, and they needed to get into a building because they were responsible for pulling enemy communication equipment. So they needed to get in this building. So they used a little bit of a shady means to get in. They said there was possibly a bomb in there, so they slid up in there. And while they were in there looking for this equipment and trying to get this equipment, some other people started to come. You know, some of the bad guys, some of the tangos were coming up on them. So he used his belt knife to short circuit out the entire system that they had going there, and then they escaped out the back. So while he didn't retrieve all the equipment, he was able to dismantle it using a Winkler belt knife.
Right, lost his knife, and of course we replaced that one for him too. So you know, and we've got numerous testimonials and letters, and a lot come from guys that have used it in the field and come back and gone on hunting trips and send pictures of their hunts, and it's just very gratifying to know that it has become part of their life, and as saved lives as part of its existence in their world.
Well, you build them for use, don't you?
Absolutely. Everything
what they're here for.
Right.
So real quick before we go, there's a little history lesson. This is the current Winkler box. This is what you're getting whenever you buy one of our blades. And then here is an older Winkler 2, one of the first production boxes.
So yeah, when we changed the logo and changed our name, we also did a new box design. So they're the same kind of box. We just had a little bit different look.
Well, Daniel, thank you for sitting down and talking with us about this. I love to hear the history of these blades. I'm sure we're going to pick out another knife or another tool to talk about later on. But thank y'all for joining us. And
thank you.
Remember, we've been there and back.